I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Lovey.
Salty and Chip.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen,
Here
obviously.
we are. Yep. So we're not in the cave anymore with you guys. Our Mac had to be sent away again. This time, though, it wasn't my fault or the fault of any children around me. It was just, I guess they put maybe a faulty logic board in there, so the whole thing just crashed. So that's being sent away. Inshallah, we'll get it back in a week. So
this is a day from hell, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pissed off.
yeah, no, you know what happened?
Angry.
So then we were driving back from there. Vin's like, I need to get a haircut. I'm like, okay. He's like, drop me off to get my haircut and then go back to the house and get my headphones. The order was a little weird to me, but I didn't argue it. So I drop him off. I hop in the driver's seat, and there's this little red light that looks like this. Bing! I'm showing you right now. And I'm like, I wonder what that light means. And then I was like, I wonder if that has anything to do with oil. So I pulled out the manual while I was driving, which probably wasn't very safe, but I was not thinking about that.
I'm just now finding that out.
Sorry. That's the only reason why I realized, wait, I shouldn't have done that, is because I was saying it in front of you. Anyway, so I look in and it says that the oil pressure is low. So I call up our guy, Bob. I'm like, Bob, the oil pressure light is on. He's like, bring it over. They were closing in 30 minutes. He's like, bring it right over. I'll take a look at it. So I scooted over there, and apparently there was this giant leak in our oil. And but they didn't realize how giant it was. They filled it. They said there's no oil in the dipstick. I'm like, okay. So they kind of patched it up good enough, put the oil and said we'll figure out because it's gonna cost thousands of dollars to get this stuff fixed. Anyway, so he's like, well, maybe your insurance will cover it, or we got a warranty on the vehicle, but you know how those work. They never really cover anything. But anyway, so I leave to go pick up Vin. And I can't friggin' see out my fucking back window. I'm like, what's happening? But I didn't think much of it. I stopped at the store to grab something. When I came out, I see this huge puddle this big of oil on the ground. And it was literally leaking out of my vehicle. I'm like, oh no. So I called Vin. I'm like, we have to go back. So the guy said for us to go back over there. And turns out the oil was friggin' leaking out of the vehicle and just flying up onto the back. That's what all that grease was on the back of the SUV. So I'm like, and he lost his wallet. Well, I don't know how it got lost, but it's all this stuff got found out today. Turns out we had a bag. Remember we went on that little vacation, the little vacation from hell that he totally regrets doing? Well, anyway, we had a bag of candy, and somebody said, one of the kids said they saw his wallet in the bag of candy, and nobody can find this bag of candy, and one of our kids might have thrown it in the dumpster. I'm not sure.
On that note, Fear Factory.
All this today.
Self-biased resistor.
The guy had to give us a ride back home. We don't even have a vehicle right now. Okay. Go.
Who is that? Roca Effects? Is that the name of the channel?
Yeah.
Shout out to Roca
Yeah.
Effects.
Roca Effects.
You did a good job, buddy.
That's all.
Pardon.
I don't say it unless I really mean it.
I love that title, Self-Bias Resistor. That's badass, man. It's a good title. I think it's one of the best titles I've heard in quite some time.
Yeah.
Self-Bias
Actually, it's
Resistor.
interesting. Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
It just sounded like maybe somebody was in some sort of system or something like that, but finally they get to the point where they're like, you know what? I'm not going with this anymore. I'm breaking out of this, and I am rebelling against this system, and I am going to live my life. And it said something at the bottom. Oh yeah, they've tried to break you, because a lot of times that's what systems try to do. They try to break you who you really are to get you to conform to their processes.
Yeah, a lot of it's weird, but a lot of like Christian parenting sermons I've heard are really just about breaking the children.
Yeah, conforming them.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like you're the parent, they're the child.
Yeah.
As if that means that like they're not worthy of dignity or
Well, yeah, but it makes parenting a lot easier.
Yeah, it's true.
Because we have a
It
bunch
also
of
makes
small
Nazism
children.
a lot easier
Yep.
too.
We have about a bunch of small children who think that they can just
Who think that they have the nerve to think that they're people.
say that's not what I mean, because they go around treating other people like they're not people sometimes, because they're so
do you
pompous
mean?
in their own.
What do you mean? Like, give me an example.
Well, like, I'm not going to give examples because I think that would be too HIPAA violations for our children. But sometimes, like, when they have their own like sense of autonomy, they're not focused on other people's, and so they're like kind of makes them very selfish.
What are you talking about? You talking about the thief?
Yes.
That has nothing to do
No,
with it.
I'm not talking about the thievery, but other things that he does
That has nothing
that
to do
affects the entire family.
with it. Yeah, that
like-
just has to do with his sin. That has nothing to do with the parenting style. You think if he came up under your oppressive regime of parenting that he'd be different?
Yeah,
I think you're
actually.
completely wrong.
Possibly, but I think that you're
You're totally wrong, because I came up under a pretty oppressive regime of parenting. It didn't stop me from doing anything. It just made me more crazy.
Yeah, at a certain age. But this shit wouldn't have been going on for this long with your mom. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, my mom and your parenting style is completely different. My mother was a Jamaican, and that was just about. I'm talking about. You're saying that the parenting style creates a kid like that? I think
No.
I think Zoe is a product of my parenting style, which is questioning everything. Why this?
They
why
all
that?
question.
Yeah, that's a result of the
Yes,
parenting
but
style.
when you
That's
have
me.
a reasonable child that's questioning everything, that's one thing. But like when somebody's unreasonable and they still he thinks he's right all the fucking time.
Who? Johan?
Yes, Johan. I'm like looking at like actually big clumps of food on the counter like this, and there's fruit flies all over it.
Well, he
I'm
never
like, you
argues.
didn't
He doesn't argue with me.
He argues with me every single time I say anything.
Doesn't argue with me.
I'm like,
Well,
has anybody noticed that the sky was blue today? It's very nice clouds. There's no clouds! I'm
Yeah.
like, there's no clouds. What do you mean there's no clouds? There's clouds. I'm looking right at them.
you think if we were raising them with the parenting style that you came up with, we'd have an easier time with him?
I do.
Yeah, I think
Possibly.
I think you're delusional. I think you're absolutely delusional.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think you're absolutely.
Why? What makes the difference?
What do you mean? What makes the difference?
So you're saying it has nothing to do with parenting style whatsoever
Him?
with him? Yeah.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's just his personality.
Whew.
He's willing to take whatever consequence comes to him, as long as he's been punished for the last 2 to 3 months consecutively.
Oh, I know. Doesn't care.
So I don't know what else your parents would have done.
Yeah, but it would have been happening from the beginning. He created a certain lifestyle for himself.
You're ridiculous.
I'm serious.
He didn't start doing this till about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And there were some pretty significant events in his life.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Things have been going missing for more than just 1.5 years.
And they haven't all been him. There was Dorian. Dorian was the one that was stealing in Houston. He blamed it all on his brother.
Oh,
His brother
true.
wasn't stealing at all.
That's true. He let him take the fall for that too. I forgot
Yeah,
about
so what are you talking about?
Well, it was him when it was the other one. I don't remember, Dorian ever stealing anything when you guys would come visit.
Anyway, but we've had this conversation many a time.
Yeah, we
where
did.
Sori believes in just breaking the child of their will, so that
Oh
you can
my
have
word! No,
you can have an
I don't
easier
want to
time
have to
growing
argue
up.
with a little child every single day.
Well,
now, he doesn't have to argue with them every day.
I tell her not to do it.
Well, what am I supposed to do?
That's the thing. Like there's ways to invoke your parental authority without breaking the child of their personality and their will.
I have not broken those kids at all, and that's part of the
know.
reason why they argue the fuck all the time.
I know, but I think it's important in their development. I
What,
think
to argue?
No, to be able to say I'm a human being. I have an opinion.
Oh, they have that. All of them. All 4 of them.
Yeah.
They have that down.
Yeah, and I think that that's important.
I think that there also needs to be an understanding of respect for authority and respect for adults.
Well, why should an adult get respect on virtue of being an adult? Like, what do you mean by respect? Like,
It
what do you
says that you should rise in the presence of the gray head.
Yeah, I understand that, but does that mean that you should just listen to whatever they say sheepishly because they're an adult?
No, but like, we're all looking at the piles of food on the counter, and it's clearly...
Yeah, you keep going back to
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying.
That has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that if he had some respect for adults, he wouldn't think that he could just argue all the time with an adult.
You think it's disrespectful to say I disagree with you?
No, I think it's disrespectful to yell and say, I did clean the counter! When you clearly didn't clean it.
Yeah, yelling, I don't teach him to yell.
Well, yeah, we teach him the opposite, but he
Yeah, we
chooses
teach
to
him.
yell.
So you're conflating
everything.
you're conflating the issues. To me, it seems like anytime a child disagrees with an adult, you automatically convert that into they're disrespecting.
No. If they have a valid point, that's different. I would say prior to seeing how you parent, yeah, I felt like kids shouldn't even I wouldn't have even taken the time to listen to a child's grievances. Like, you're a child. So, like, I have my life and I'm, doing it. You are a little child and that's it. Like, kind of like the children should be seen and not heard, basically, but not, like, completely. Like, yeah, that was kind of like my thing. No way should kids be arguing. They should just have a general respect for adults. Say thank you. Say please.
Again, respect equals do not disagree with adults.
No, not now. Now, respect means don't freaking yell at me.
Well, yeah, but
stuff like that.
But we're not disagreeing on that.
Are you saying back then?
Well, we're not disagreeing on that. That's not my parenting style. I don't allow for children to yell. I don't allow for anybody to yell at me.
True.
Nobody gets to yell at me. So, I've told some adults, like, don't raise your voice to me. Right? So it seems to me that you're saying that at least back then you conflated disagreeing with adults to disrespecting them.
Oh, back then? Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
You don't see how that could be dangerous.
Yeah, I do. Of course I do. But I didn't back then.
Catholic Church. I mean, what the hell?
Well, yeah, if you get around a bad adult or, like, then it always kind of, like, puts, like, a person in the situation where you're like, how much can you say? Like, how much can you disagree? And then, like, I mean, I was, my parents did the best, that they could with what they had. They weren't terrible parents. But we were not, you couldn't, like, disagree or anything like that. So it did make it difficult when I had questions regarding things that I was, questions that I had about the Bible or anything like that, because it's like, well, this is kind of like questioning an adult. How far can you push the question? Well, you can't really push it very far because, like I said, the minute I pushed it a little bit...
Dorian went through that phase and he was like, the Psalms are worthless.
Yeah, I know.
But he felt okay to say, this is how I feel about this particular book of the Bible.
I know.
He'd be like, Paul stuff is actually useful.
Yeah.
You can actually do something with it, but the Psalms are worthless. He used to do this.
Yeah.
But that's where he was at the time. And I wanted to create...
You were very good at, like, accepting people at where they are at the phase that they're at. Well, I'm like...
I don't think it's about being good at it. I just think it's about not being a megalomaniac.
A what? A megalomaniac?
Like, just like a complete little tyrant, a little Hitler in your house.
Well, yeah.
But the Bible doesn't give you the credence to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it just... Like, it's when you're a controlling person, it just makes it difficult. Everybody knows I'm a controlling person. I really try to work on it.
I was listening to this debate one time between a Catholic and a Protestant, and the Protestant guy just destroyed him. And then the Catholic guy, one of his handlers was like, "You did a terrible job, blah 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 blah," and then the other Catholic guy was just shaking his head. He goes, "Yeah, stuff like this has gone really bad for us since the Inquisition."
What?
He basically saying was, we've been losing these public discourses ever since we haven't been able to torture people into Catholicism. The Inquisition.
That's so dangerous. Okay.
Yeah. FYI, the Inquisition hurt a lot of Protestants. Anyway. So this song, Self-Biased Resistor, I think the title basically means like,
you believe that you're right for resisting, like you have a bias toward yourself on the matter?
Or you're resisting the bias against yourself. Because a culture like basically tells you a certain narrative about yourself, like you're like, it's like the X-Men metaphor, right? Where like the X-Men are mutants or freaks, so then they grow up with all the self-hatred about, they go...
Yeah.
So they have to resist that bias against themselves.
Interesting.
So that's how
cool.
that's how I take the title self-biased resistor, like, because it's it's they, and the question's always like, it's like, who is they? All these years they've tried to bring you to your knees.
There's lots of theys. Theys could have been your parents, it could have been your school, it could have been your church, it could have been your city, your government, there's so many different theys that it could be.
Right. Nobody ever conceptualizes himself as the they.
No, of course not.
Nobody ever conceptualizes himself as like the evil fucking oppressive person.
I bet, honest to goodness, I bet if you sat down and you asked Hitler, I don't even think that he would have thought he was.
No, if you read Mein Kampf, they felt, they were oppressed. Well, the Germans did feel oppressed because they were oppressed because the Treaty of Versailles was a fucking.
I'm talking about Hitler, not the Germans that were under him. Wait, what?
Well, after World.
Every time I say something and I think I know what I'm talking about and you hesitate, then I'm like, wait.
No, after.
Was it actually the Russians or? I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
After World War I, the Germans had to basically sign the Treaty of Versailles, which completely emasculated them as a country, basically.
Okay.
And it hurt them a lot. So there was a sense in which they were oppressed by being forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of animus and bad blood of the German people. So they were oppressed. Mm-hmm. But what happens is that, he was able to codify that hatred, that oppression, and then became an oppressor. Mm-hmm. Which is, it was an interesting, the human machines of hate, it was like, where it says, burn your fuse to detonate the human machines of hate. Mm-hmm. Like you use your anger to blow up this whole fucking construct. Mm-hmm. I don't think though that the principle of anger is sufficient to affect real social change in the context of defeating oppression. Anger to me seems to be a way of exchanging oppressors.
Oh, I know, but I don't think that people feel like that. Like, because your anger enables you to do things you might not normally be able to do. It helps you to stand up to the bully or speak out where you need to speak out or do what you need to do. So you feel like it's empowering you. You feel like your anger is like your ally, but then it turns into a prison of bitterness and resentment, and it traps you into it. And then your life becomes miserable, and I think sometimes you don't even realize why it's miserable, because you don't realize what the hate did. Because when you first bit into the apple, it was sweet, but then it turned bitter over time. And I don't think that you realize it because the bitterness is taken over before you realize that it's that sweet apple.
Yeah, it's interesting because people, a lot of times, because to me the thing that undergirds actual real social change can't be anger. It's got to be love. And of course, immediately, oh, that's so corny, you dumb Christians, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, okay, look at the 20th century. Oh, we're pissed off at the bourgeoisie, and we're pissed off at these aristocrats. So what are we going to do? We're going to eat the fucking rich and have a communist empire and body 150 million people. So, like, oh, these people were oppressing the common man, the poor person, which they were.
Yeah.
And so what do? You eat the rich and you kill all, you get rid of these and you send everybody to the gulag, and all of a sudden now it's Animal Farm, where some animals are more equal than others, and now you're a fucking the most oppressive regime we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. Forget about the Tsar, Tsar Nicholas and all the rest of it. I mean, they couldn't do in 3,000 years at the level of horror that the communists brought to the planet. And it's the same shit with communist China and communist Cuba. Like, these guys who were supposedly fighting for the common man to overcome oppression, because they were fueled by hate and anger, became oppressors themselves.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to check you. There's nothing to check human nature with anger. Well, that's the same thing with Hitler. One could argue that the Treaty of Versailles was obtuse and not very fair, but he took that shit to the and of course it's no oversimplification between Nazi Germany and Hitler and all the rest of it. But I mean, it's facts. It's the same thing with the Crusades. Like, anybody that really looks at history, at least in the early Crusades, there was Islamic encroachment because, the facts are that there is a strain of Islamic theology and thought that says that they need to expand the Khalifa and to do that by violence. And of course, Jerusalem is one of the three holiest places with, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, we've got these people, they're being oppressive, and so we've got to respond to that. So the Crusaders go in there when they were oppressive motherfuckers. So now when you think about...
Wait, you were saying that Islam was coming in on those people first, and then the Crusades came in as like a...
There's a good historical argument to be made that the initial Crusades, because there are multiple waves, were a reaction to Islamic encroachment. So anytime I talk about Crusades, there's always people that send me this stuff, and I'm like, I know.
Interesting.
The problem is that the Christians went so, as it says in the Quran, Allah does not love those who exceed the limits. Yep. And they exceeded the limits like crazy, to the point where anytime you think about the Crusades, you don't think about Islamic encroachment.
No way.
You think about the excesses that the Christians went to rescue the people. So, like, it's interesting to me, like, within this encouragement to resist, the underpinning of all of that is just, animus and rage and hate, which inevitably will make the subject of this resistance turn into an oppressor. If you're the type of person that only resists because and what's at the bottom is just rage and hate, you're going to turn into oppressor. Like, it's almost a perfect record historically. It's the same thing in Jesus' time. So, for example, you had the jihadists, who were trying to fight against Roman oppression, and then during the Jewish war, they burned all the bread because there were a whole bunch of people who didn't want to fight.
Yeah.
So they became the oppressors because the root of it was. So it's like all across history. Like,
what's the antidote?
If you, this was what I said, was the same thing with the Revolutionary War. Like, oh shit, we're being, taxation without representation, and they went out there and kicked out those redcoats and then enslaved, you had slaves the whole fucking time. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if at bottom it's only rage and self-interest, then you're going to turn into an oppressor. But if it's love that's underneath all that, then you won't be an oppressor, because your love will stop you from oppressing other people once they're liberated.
What's the antidote?
I just said love. That's what I just said.
Yeah, but how do you make yourself love when you're full of hate?
You can't. You just got to read the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah, it sounds funny, but it's like, it's real. Like, the more I look at the history of Jesus' time and then compare and see what these people did, in comparison to what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount, if they would have listened to him.
Is that Matthew 6?
Yeah, Matthew, 4
well,
through.
People might not know.
And it's Matthew chapter 5, basically, through chapter 7.
Okay.
But, because they did the exact opposite of everything Jesus told them to do. 1.1 million according to Josephus. I mean, those numbers are kind of high.
Uh-huh.
But what was happening was, we were listening today, Vespasian was marching through, and so it was like he bottlenecked everybody into Jerusalem. Everybody's running into Jerusalem because it was the most fortified city, and they thought it was, impenetrable. One, because it was their most fortified city, and two, because the temple was there, so God wouldn't let it happen. So if they would have just listened, but they were so full of hate toward these Romans that they were just,
Yeah.
And so they became extremely oppressive.
Right.
It actually engendered a civil war because you had a bunch of people saying, we don't want to fight these Romans. They're like the superpower of the world. There's no way we can do that. And so the zealots, they were called, started killing people. You don't want to fight? We're going to kill you. Oh, you guys want to escape? We're going to destroy all the bread.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it just turns you into a really oppressive person. But, I mean, what do you expect for people who've been oppressed all their lives? They try to break you to your knees. Anger scars right through your veins,
Yeah.
I remember as one of my earliest memories, I was like 9 or 10.
Yeah.
We had this family we used to visit up here in Maine, actually, Donnie and Danica. And they were like, Donnie was 17 and he was cool and blah, 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 and he could drive. And we were sleeping over their house one night and Donnie didn't show up at all. He didn't show up. And he wasn't one of these, partier, blah, blah, blah. Well, he gets home at 3:30 and the cops had been fucking with him for 5 hours. Oh, of course he's black. Yeah. And so
Donnie doesn't sound black. Danica does, but Donnie doesn't.
So, well, I don't know what sounds black to you.
Well, no, I'm just saying because you were like, of course. I'm like, well, I want you to know why I even asked that question.
So Donnie, they were fucking with him for hours now.
That's so frustrating.
Now, the problem was that his dad was a state representative of whatever. So once they found out who he was, they said, oh shit, but it was too late. I mean, it's fucking 3:30 in the morning. And nobody could find out where Donnie was. I mean, this was
Oh my gosh.
Not everybody had a cell phone at the time and all this shit.
You didn't even have your BlackBerry yet.
So you had no fucking clue where Donnie was.
Oh my god.
And so, his mom's freaking out, everybody's freaking out, and then he gets home, and I just remember being so angry.
Oh my gosh.
That, because I remember me and my brother used to make fun of Donnie because he was such a nerd and he was such a do-gooder. He wouldn't even steal candy at the store. He was just and that kid gets fucked with by the police. And then
in Maine, even.
Well, I mean, where else? In Maine. He's the only black. He was driving a BMW. They were pretty well off. So it was like, well, what are you doing in that top car? Type of shit. So it was, but it was
his name wasn't on the.
That was an early. It was his dad's, or his grandfather, state representative, whatever.
Yep.
But
Yikes.
it was such an. And then, of course, now there's YouTube, so you can see, unarmed people getting shot all over the place, and it turns you into a really angry motherfucker, and that's why I've told people, especially black people, don't watch those videos, man.
Don't read the comments under.
Don't watch the Castile video where he's getting shot and his daughter's in the back seat and all that shit, because it'll turn you into a hateful motherfucker. We know. He was he got shot. He told the guy that he was carrying, and then the guy shot him. We get it. Don't watch it, because it'll turn you into a really, really angry person. Especially if you start seeing the comment section in the back, at the bottom. That shit is toxic. It's really, really toxic, and then and it got to the boiling point a couple of years ago with that summer where that dude started shooting police. And I firmly believe a lot of it is due to the fact that you can see this shit happen over and over again.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You can just click it and watch it over and over again, and then you can see. I really believe that social media had a lot to do with that. Because, it turns you into a really, really angry person. And so there's always that, human beings are not meant to be dominated. You know, we're not meant to dominate each other. We're supposed to rule together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, until we figure that out, we're going to be in this never-ending cycle of violence and hatred and acrimony. And so it's like, but this is motivating as hell, though.
Yeah.
Resistful, resistance,
Yeah.
resistor, insolent, you are a dissident.
The guy's voice too. He's very, very nice singer.
It's fucking
I like
powerful.
it. Yeah. Clean.
Yeah, he didn't have like death vocals, like, but it was still like very
Yeah.
masculine.
I thought, like,
masculine shit.
That's the kind of voice, like, you know, like sometimes people like they'll stand up on these like monuments and they'll
Yeah.
like, yell from one of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like one of those.
Yeah, the resistance. What do you give the song?
Some of it seemed very repetitive. And I'm not sure which part was it that seemed repetitive, or even if there was a repetitive part, or if it just, to my perception. Was there a part that was repetitive?
I don't know.
Yeah, it is. This
Where?
look keeps repeating. Now it's time to put an end to all the lies. Now it's time to take control of your life. They repeat that a lot. So that kind of knocks it down, because it was like, okay, way too many times to say that. Or it felt like it was way too many times. But his voice was really good. I liked the sound of everything.
So what do you give it?
Trying to decide, babe, as I'm saying it, I'm calculating. 8.7, but it has a really good message, though. 8.7. 9, because we talked about anger and how you shouldn't let that fester. 9.
Well, I didn't say you shouldn't let anger fester. I just said you shouldn't let it be the bottom,
Yeah.
the guiding
Yeah,
emotion.
right.
Because anger is a gift. I mean, there's Saul, right? When the Midianites were oppressing him, and it says the Holy Spirit came upon Saul, and he was filled with anger, and he went out and did jihad, and he rescued his people, and they had a big celebration.
Yeah, but the difference is he was angry because he wasn't angry for his own cause. Like, he was angry because for God.
Well,
So it was something higher than himself.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, I think that, like, even, like, if I feel like that if I acted out in anger because of something that somebody did to me personally, it would be different than if I saw somebody oppressing somebody else and I react out in, like, anger toward that. Like, I feel like that it would affect the person differently. But
Well, yeah, that's why
You
I
know.
said is that love has to be the under.
right. Oh, yeah. Love should be the underpinning, guys. All right, what do you give it?
It's a 9.3. I deducted a couple points because of the Metallica riff in the middle. Sound very much like a Metallica riff to me.
Oh, okay.
And somebody was like, "Oh, shut up, Vin! Not everybody steals from Metallica." I know, but that one was stolen from Metallica. That one was.
I didn't know this.
Watch out. 9.3. It's a good song. It can be a good message, but for where we are right now in our current social discussion, I think it's very important to like delineate that. Like, you can be mad at your oppressor all you want, but you will inevitably become you'll become the thing that you hate. If you let yourself be consumed
Amen.
with loveless anger. Let me put it that way. Not anger, but loveless anger. Because there is loving anger. Watch out. All right. Been out.
Sorry out.
Gone.